Hi, right. What we're looking at today concerns sampling techniques. All right, mostly useful for covering content for sound creation and manipulation, though it does crop up obviously in other units as well. Well, I'm going to be showing you some very straightforward techniques, how to get reason up. We're going to be using the NNXT, which is the advanced sampler in reason. And I'm just going to crack on with this, show you a few things. I've got an empty rack there, which is normally how we start, by right mousing. You can choose to get your different units up. We always start with the mixer, and today obviously, as I said, we're using the NNXT, which comes minimized. Now we're going to open up the remote editor, which is the nuts and bolts, and you can see that it's already preloaded with a piano, and I'm just going to keep that there for a second to just show you one or two little tricks. Select zone via MIDI. If you have that enabled, which I'd like to do, just show you what's happening here is, I don't know if you can hear that. You can see that the focus for the editing is moving there, and that is really handy when you want to apply these parameters, not globally, but to a specific sample. Okay, this is a multi-sample piano. We're not going to be using that. I'm going to be showing you how to work on an imported loop, and to do that we're going to initialize by right mousing, and you can see here initialize patch, and there it is. That's back to its default position basically of being completely empty. Now right mousing again here, not browse patches, browse samples. All right. Now it's taken me to a grand piano folder here. What I'm going to do is show you the directory tree. We're actually going to be looking at music loops. Okay, so fixed tempo, waves or eighths is what we want, and you can see that there. Okay, the way that you can audition these is to have that checked and use the up and down arrows on your keyboard, QWERTY keyboard. This 100 BPM one here, a nice little grungy lo-fi sample there. We're going to get that in. Okay, now you can see that it's loaded that between C1 and C6. Okay, and that is a zone. Okay, so if you ever come across the term zone, that's what it is. Without that selected, playing it at C3, as long as I hold the key down, it will play. And if I press the key intermittently, like that, it stops playing. Basically, it's because the release is at 0. I'm going to put this on, and you can see that it's selected that, and that's basically what we want to do with that one. So we've imported our loop, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to have that loop just play on one key. All right, grab hold of these handles, and I'm going to have it on its root note of C3, so that when I play C3 on the keyboard it plays. Any other note that I play, frantically going up and down the keyboard, it's not there. C3, and there it is. So we're just triggering that on C3 at the moment. We've adjusted the key span, that's what we were doing there. Now I want to draw your attention down here to the start and end point of our sample. All right. Now it's quite simple, really. It's self-explanatory. These are expressed in percentages of a whole. So by default, it plays from 0% at the very beginning to 100% very end. Okay. And what I'm going to do is slowly increase that. Now, with rhythmical content like this, you can say, for example, just play a short proportion, small portion of this particular loop, and obviously mathematically, if we go anywhere near 50%, like that's just playing half the sample. That might be something that is useful for you. Drag this to obviously 75%, and it's just playing a quarter of it. Now, this has only limited use when using rhythmical samples, but it's quite useful if you've got a piano or another acoustic instrument and you want to take off the attack portion of the sound so that it sort of fades in a little bit more. That's something to experiment with. Okay, so we've got start and the end points there of the sample covered. Now, what I'd like to look at now is sample looping. Now, this can be a bit confusing, the terminology. I've already been talking about a loop, and this here, this zone represents a rhythmical loop of 2 bars. It's a drum loop, okay? Okay, but what I'm going to show you is how to make a loop within that rhythmic sample. So in other words, have the sampler go backwards and forwards across the length of the sample, determined by loop start, loop end, and play mode. Now, at the moment, play mode is forward, which means it goes obviously in the correct direction and it doesn't loop. Now, if we just grab this and move it, you can see that you can choose the loop, forwards and then backwards. We just show that for you. Okay, you can it's be quite useful for certain things. A couple of other ones I'm not going to go into there. Let's sustain. This one is backwards or reverse, obviously. Okay, show you a little bit of some creative use of that in a second. Let's go back here now to our forward loop and draw our attention to the end and the start points. Okay, oh, I'm sorry, that's the loop end and the loop start. So let's start off shortening it. So keeping on the numerically even values. You notice I'm dragging my mouse a long way away from the controller. The reason for that is that you can get more accuracy in the readout there. It's still a bit fiddly. Okay, let's just see what that does. That's getting a quarter into the sample and then looping it. All right, could be useful if you're only interested in one particular specific part of a sample that you want repeating. Let's try something a little bit different to actually change the feel of the loop. I'm going to put the end point at 100 and I'm going to bring the start point right up close to that, and so it's now sort of 97.5, somewhere around there. Let's just see what that does. Okay, now that obviously is quite a radical sort of a sound. What we're going to do actually is start at 50% so that we only have to listen to half of it. You hear that? Now you can actually tune that distance so that it's rhythmically in time with the loop. Okay, I'm not going to faff about getting that tuned exactly right. I'm sure that you can recognise the sound of that. It's quite a common technique. Alright, it's not a perfectly tuned loop, but I don't have the time to go into it. So what have we covered? We've got an initialized patch, and we've loaded this in here. Mucked around with the start and the end, and gone into the play modes. Again, these are very basic things. Right mouse on that, what I could do is to duplicate that zone, so it's now an exact copy, and if I move that now what you can do is you could have these two set up completely differently. So let's try this one, okay, and what we'll do is we'll just get rid of that loop. Okay, so that's going to play normally, and this one, let's just muck around with the end of that. Okay, so it's going to play it from the very beginning, and then okay. Again, I haven't got the time to tune these properly, but hopefully that will give you some sort of an idea of the creative use of that. Last thing I want to talk about is that you should always, of course, save your work. What I'm doing, I'm making my screencast test, so I will save that in there and entitle that Root 01. Okay, that's it, guys. Thank you.